and that provides almost real-time information sharing among 30 plus local and federal criminal justice agencies that have jurisdiction in DC. The second thing we do is we conduct research and analysis to help track public safety trends, to help monitor how the justice system is functioning, and that's done by our Statistical Analysis Center staff. The third thing is we facilitate interagency collaboration. We have a number of committees and work groups that focus on those 4 priority areas that our members have identified. And then lastly, we provide training and technical assistance. And so what that looks like for us is information sharing sessions, and we had one yesterday, and that's more focused on kind of our partner agencies educating one another on the work that they do. And then we also host public meetings, which is an opportunity for the public to engage directly with justice system leaders on critical public safety issues. So I'm so glad, again, that you all have joined us this evening on this very important topic. I also want to thank Dr. Dante Daniel, who's a policy analyst on CJCC's team. He actually leads our substance abuse and mental health portfolio, and he's the one that has planned this event today. So I'm very grateful to Dante. So I think what I'm going to do next is we're happy. Dante's going to introduce most of the panel, but I do want to take the opportunity to introduce Judge Craig Isco, and he is the presiding judge of both the Drug Court and the Mental Health Community Court at DC Superior Court, and just want to turn it over to him to offer some additional remarks.
I am delighted to be here, and thank you, Ms. Love. I should say that we'll talk a lot more about the drug court, the mental health court, but I've been a judge since 2003, and back in 2008 and 2009, I was a presiding judge of the East of the River Community Court, and worked very closely with the CJCC. Then they've always been a wonderful agency that provides a great deal of public service and helps coordinate things, helps make sure that everybody's on the same page. So we have another fantastic leader of the CJCC. And Ms. Love, Dr. Daniel and I have had a lot of discussions about mental health court and drug court. In a minute, we're going to I'll let Dr. Daniel introduce the panel that is here with me. But let me just say that the drug court is designed to help people who have drug and alcohol problems avoid serving time in custody and instead let them get the treatment that they need to lead useful and productive lives, to help their families, to be better parents, to be better members of the community, things that they want to do. And I could ask all of you, I would say, raise your hand if you have had experience with you or a family member or close friend with drugs or alcohol, and I think almost everybody in the room would raise their hand, including me. I think I'd probably, if I asked the opposite question, who has not had a family member or friend or personal experience with drugs or alcohol, almost nobody would raise their hand. But let me try. Anybody that has not had experience with that? Okay, we all know the problems that drug and alcohol can happen. I've seen it firsthand. Some things I mention in court, others I don't mention in court, but I know what people are going through. And the drug court program, and I'll describe it more in detail in a minute, but is designed, like I said, to help people stop using drugs or alcohol or both and get back to what they want to be. And we'll describe that more, but I'll just say all the people who are up here with me believe in that mission, and that includes pretrial services supervisors like Fayola King. It includes Attorney Dee Glickman, who represents everybody in drug court, is the defense attorney. It includes prosecutors from the Office of the Attorney General, Adam Sadek. It includes prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Katie Sessa, and it includes people who've been through drug court, Fiona Etheridge. It includes everybody. We all want to see success. So, Dr. Jen, I'll let you introduce everybody and give a little bit more information. But this panel is not about me, it's about everybody that's here and how we all believe in the mission. And I'm going to welcome questions from all of you in a few minutes.
Thank you, judges. Again, my name is Dante Daniel, and I will be your moderator. I want to thank you for fighting through traffic to get here and participating in an important discussion on DC Drug Court. I'll begin with introductions. I don't want to butcher just anybody's name, so I'll begin with United States Attorney,
Katie Sessa.
Katie Sessa, excuse me. I was going to say.
Hi, everyone.
So, and I also want to transition to Adam Sadiq. He's with Office of the Attorney General, Public Safety Division. As we know, Judge Isco. We have Ms. Viola King, with PDS, as well as Fiona Etheridge, drug court graduate, and we have Dee Glickman with PDS, so we will begin first with best practices for drug court, DC Drug Court, and then we'll transition to our multi-agency collaboration and receive their perspective on DC Drug Court. And then we will transition to live experience and collateral consequences of DC Drug Court as well. So I'm going to take a seat because I don't want to stand over everybody right here, but I will begin with defining best practices. So best practices are not just ideal policies. They're actually a standard proven record of decades of research to measurably improve outcomes, lower recidivism, and support lasting change in a sense, right? And in order for that to happen, I went to allrise.org. They're a huge research study think tank, and they conduct a lot of research on not particularly DC drug court, but defining best practices for drug court and what the commonalities are for a successful drug court. And we'll begin with objective of eligibility and early outreach. So basically, it is based on written, empirical, validated criteria, not a personal opinion, not a personal impression or motivation about a person. It is based on a criteria that will but objectively evaluate this individual to see if they fit the criteria for drug court. From there, they partake in a multidisciplinary team approach, as you can see here on the panel. From judges, attorneys, supervision officers, treatment providers, often, as well as peer recovery specialists that we have. Each member follows their professional standards and share information lawfully and collaborates to support participant progress. We'll transition to evidence-based treatment and recovery supports. Each individual receives access to CBT therapy, to medication for addiction treatment, as well as trauma-informed care, providing these supports and coordinated wraparound services for this individual in order for them to succeed. From there, there's proactive monitoring and procedural fairness. So I guess as you more so successfully advance, passing drug tests, adhering to the rules and standards of drug court, supervision tends to lighten as time goes by, as well as there's some incentives as well. But if you are to somewhat not adhere to the guidelines and standards, there are some sanctions, but sanctions that are somewhat, I would say, that would strengthen your ability to continue to participate in drug court. As well as there's continuous training and program improvement. I will actually ask that of our different individuals that represent different agencies, as this is a continuous learning process, and you can improve upon the program continuously. So these are some basic standards and some basic criteria that successfully lead drug courts. Not every drug court is the same. Some allow violent offenders within a certain time range, some don't. But ultimately, these are just commonalities of research-based commonalities of drug court that lead to successful change. So I will transition to our panel and begin with questions. Our next panel will be on, excuse me. Our next panel will be on purpose and eligibility, program design and implementation, as well as questions you can provide for the panel. And I will begin actually with Judge Bisco. And I want to begin with the question regarding, what do you think is the biggest myth about eligibility and that you'd like to debunk?
I'm not sure what the biggest myth is. One of them, though, is that it's really hard to complete drug court. That's not completely a myth. It can be true, but that doesn't mean it's not worth doing, because the results can be phenomenal. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. We're going to hear from Ms. Etheridge later, who's a graduate of the drug court. But today, somebody who's going through drug court and had some difficulties in drug court today was talking about he earned a raffle barrel. That means he was doing really well. And I asked, why he's doing well. He said he's, focused on, among other things, his family. And so I said, because your family, your children are going to benefit from you being clean and sober. And then he said his 17-year-old daughter hugged him and said, I got back the father I used to have because you're sober. And he teared up, started crying. People in the jury box who were serving sanctions, Traffic Lakeman was there.
I was crying.
And then later somebody in the jury box who's serving a sanction for not doing well said, I've got a daughter who's I think 15 and she needs me sober. This is an inspiration. And there are things you see in drug court that bring tears to your eyes, sometimes sadness, but a lot of times it's happiness. And I think as a judge, you've got to believe in this. As lawyers, you've got to believe in it. And I just want to interrupt to introduce one other person who's here. Can you stand up? This is Angel Surratt. Now, everybody who knows Angel Surratt knows what a great job she does. And I just want to tell you, because she's part of the program. She's not right here on the panel right now, but she will be. When I became the presiding judge, first at the mental health court and drug court, I said, we need a peer navigator, somebody who's been through it, who's been a defendant in a case, because that was the model for the most successful mental health court, one in Miami. And the Department of Behavioral Health, not our courts, but the Department of Behavioral Health, I talked to them, they agreed to hire somebody, they picked Angel Surratt. They said, we think we've got somebody who's good for the job, and they were wrong. She's great for the job. She's fantastic. She was so good that the defense attorneys started saying, why can't we have her in drug court too? And I asked, and they said, sure, you can have her in drug court. So I don't want to, because she's such an integral part. I think everybody in drug court would agree to see the prosecutors are nodding, defense attorneys are nodding, Ms. King from Pretrial is nodding, and Ms. Etheridge, who's been through it, is nodding. She has been a defendant in a criminal case. She has been clean and sober for 24 weeks now, 24 months now, 24 years. Years. She is so good that when we gave her a little award recognizing 24 years of sobriety, a defense attorney said, I wish I'd known about this. I think all the defense attorneys who worked with her would like to come. We had another ceremony, and it was jammed with defense attorneys who were thanking her. Yeah, amazing. Because defense attorneys were originally distrustful. Like, you want somebody to talk, advise my client? I said, I'm not gonna be there. The lawyers aren't gonna be there, but the defense lawyers can be there. You can sit in on any meeting. And now people ask for her. She works really, really hard and does a great job, not just on dealing with, and this is not just, but all the problems with substance abuse, but the related issues, such as homelessness, such as abuse that people may be going through. Things that somebody will not say in court, may not say to their attorney, they will say to Angel Surratt. And I'll just, I don't want to go on except to say that some people who graduate say, because their first name's Angel, they say, thank you to my angel.
Thank you so much.
And I think you'll hear later, what a great job she's done personally. And there could be 100 people testifying to what she's done. So the myth about drug court, I think, sometimes is, oh, they just want to punish you. It's going to be really hard. And let me tell you, some of the incentives that get people into drug court is to avoid going to jail. That's a pretty strong incentive. And many of the people who are prosecuted by the DCAG are facing mandatory minimums of 10, 15, 20, 30, or 40 days even in jail if they're convicted of driving under the influence of similar offenses with high toxicology scores or other matters. And they can avoid that mandatory minimum by completing drug court. But it's not easy. And should they be scared? Yeah, because they have to plead guilty to get into the program. That means if they're kicked out of the program, they're going to have to go to jail. They've already pleaded guilty. They've got a real incentive to perform. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes Ms. Surratt will talk to them. And people sometimes change. With somebody who graduated today, Mr. Glickman was there, and Ms. Sessa was there. I think, when I look back, he was admitted in October of 2023.
Yes, correct.
And what is it now? It's August of 2025. It's supposed to be a 6-month program, right? It was not easy for him. He was up and down, and it just started going up and stayed up. And what you see, in drug court, we comment on people's appearance more than we do in anything else. And we're not saying you're pretty or handsome or something like that. We're saying you're looking good, or you look a lot better than you did. And Mr. Glickman, I know you say that. You said that at graduation today. Ms. Sessa has said it. Mr. Sadik has said it. Like, you're like a different person. You look different. And often it's not just they look healthier, they look happy. It is a very rewarding court to be in, but it's not all success. And it's not all fast success. The person who graduated today, I had my doubts at one point, but I don't tell them that. I always say, I think you can do it. Because for everybody, even if I have doubts, I still think they can. They need encouragement. Sometimes they need the pretrial services officer. I was talking to this king. Quite often at graduation, people say, I didn't like Mr. X, Ms. Y. I thought they were against me, they're hard to work with, but now I see they're really on my side. And we had that today. We talked about this pair and somebody else. Both got thanks. And, you know, at one point, they were kind of the devil to that person, because, oh, they're just trying to get me in trouble, they're just doing this and that, and they realized, no, they're trying to help me. Sometimes they have to speak in a way that provide information that people don't want to hear. But once they hear it, and once they embrace it, it makes a big difference. So I probably talked more than you wanted about this, but I think it's important to convey sort of the dynamic, interpersonal nature of drug court. And in drug court, I talk more to defendants than I do in any other court, because in any other court, the lawyer doesn't want their client to talk, to say anything. Here, it can be very therapeutic and can lead to success.
Thank you for that, Judge Scott. Attorney Sadiq, what are some of the criteria and how much autonomy do you have to choose persons for DC drug court?
So again, Adam Sadek from OAG here. One thing I'll say is there's no real cookie cutter approach or specific list of criteria that we're looking for. Approval for drug court, OAG does have to approve a case on our end before we send a case to drug court, as well as pretrial services. But it's really done on a case-by-case basis. And at the end of the day, there are certain factors that we look for, that we pay attention to in each case, but what it really comes down to is we're balancing the needs of this specific defendant against overall public safety. And so what do I mean by that? So let's say you have a defendant, it's clear that they have a substance abuse problem. Maybe they were arrested for DUI and they submitted to a urinalysis post-arrest, a urine test, and then that came back positive for PCP. Well, that's indicative, and maybe this isn't their first offense even, but that's clearly indicative of a substance abuse problem. However, again, hypothetical reality here, let's say this person is also on supervised release, and I joke, it's not a laughing matter, but let's say this person is on supervised release for first-degree murder, or a violent offense, that we also have to think about what their participation would mean for the other participants in the program, because a huge part of the program is group sessions, in being in person around other participants in the program and representatives from pretrial and the court system itself. So that's ultimately that's what the balance is. But we look to other things like their overall criminal history, whether they are in fact suffering from a substance abuse issue. If they have been inside the criminal justice system before, what did that look like? Were they given an opportunity at drug court in the past, and maybe it went well or didn't go so well? Or maybe as a result of their conditions of release, maybe they were involved in some sort of testing, treatment. Well, how did that go? These are some of the factors that we're looking for. But again, it's not a checklist of A, B, C, D. Okay, this person's approved. It's a case-by-case basis. And another, I glossed over one super important factor is, can this person, commit to the rigors of the program? What I mean by that is, you do have to come in person during the week for group sessions and for testing and in-person supervision meetings. Well, if you live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and you just happen to get arrested for DUI in the district, it's going to be a little tough. I mean, we will work with you to the extent that we can, and we will tailor the program to your needs to the extent that we can. But there are certain realities that we just can't ignore. I mean, I would personally, as Adam Sadek, I would love to give drug court to everyone, to as many people as we could. But sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Sometimes they need inpatient.
That's another. Sometimes they need inpatient. There's things that may have to happen before they can even begin the program. So unfortunately, for better or for worse, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. But like I said, those are some of the factors that we're looking for in determining eligibility.
And I'll just add, so for the U.S. Attorney's Office side of things, we get a lot of different types of offenders in drug court. So we're looking at large category of crimes, and it's the same. There's no cookie cutter kind of formula for who can come and who can't come. We do have certain things that will exclude someone from eligibility. If their current case is a violent crime, they're not eligible for drug court. But there are certain things that will exclude you based on your criminal history. But besides that, we have pretrial that makes the clinical determination. And so Ms. King could talk about that, but pretrial makes the clinical determination on whether or not the individual has a substance use disorder issue in the first place. And that determination basically is if someone needs intensive outpatient treatment or greater, meaning or inpatient treatment, then they will qualify, most likely qualify on the clinical side. But we rely on pretrial to tell us who qualifies clinically. And then we look at the criminal history. If there's a victim, we talk to the victim to get their thoughts. And we just kind of evaluate it based on, again, does someone seem like they really want to put in the work to do it? Because for the USAO, for the U.S. Attorney's Office cases, we don't have the DUIs with the mandatory minimums. So most of our cases, if you plead guilty up front and complete it successfully, your case will be completely dismissed at the end. And I think OIG has some cases like that, maybe. A few, but most of ours are like that. So we do.
Can you give an example of the kinds of crimes?
Sure. Unlawful entry, theft offenses, destruction of property. We have some felony offenses like unauthorized use of a vehicle. Those are kind of the main ones that I see, but there are more. That's not an exhaustive list. Possession of a controlled substance, obviously. And so the fact that they will be dismissed eventually is another big factor for us to consider when thinking about public safety. Because if we're willing to eventually dismiss this case, we need to feel confident in the safety of the community, because we're allowing someone to be on release, obviously, during all of this. And so if it's someone who's violent, or we're concerned about that, then that would not be a good fit. Public safety is our primary concern, but obviously when rehabilitation is possible, we are very happy to do so, and I've had seen a lot of great successes.
Thank you. This is for all panelists, but what challenges occur in trying to coordinate between the different agencies when approaching an individual with this opportunity, and how do you overcome them?
I would say the greatest challenge when it comes to coordinating with all the agencies is just getting the participants to, one, be honest with themselves, be honest with us on what they're capable of doing. And just to realize that we're here to support them. So once they're honest, we can better provide a plan, a course of action of how to assist them through any challenges they may have. If it's a challenge where they're unable to come to court based on, could be a variety of issues. They may be working, parental responsibilities, mobility issues, so transportation issues. So things like that, as long as they're honest, we can try to resolve those issues as a team, because we're a diverse team. It's, we have the drug court judge, we have PDS, OAG, USAO, we have clinical services specialists. The clinical services specialists, they do a good deal with making recommendations based on individualized issues. They can override treatment recommendations. So it's not a cookie cutter all, one size fits all for participants. So just being honest.
And Ms. King, may you elaborate on PDS's role in this treatment?
Attorney Glickman does a great job with.
PSA, excuse me, I'm sorry, I always get it. PSA, excuse me.
Oh.
I appreciate the compliment though.
We'll be
Never
giving
turned
to you.
down a
Oh.
problem.
Yes.
Pretrial services role?
PSA.
Okay, so PSA, we're the agency that, we're tasked with supervising defendants that come in. So, well, let me back up. Initially, we conduct the assessments. The assessments, we use an instrument that's objective. That assessment lets us know what level of treatment the defendant requires. From there, we can recommend the defendant for drug court or not. Once they're placed into drug court, the pretrial services officers kind of monitor them. They'll ensure that the conditions set by the court are followed, that they're compliant with going to groups. Any issues they may have, they will route them to wherever they may need to go. They can route them to Attorney Glickman, the court, a clinical services specialist who can resolve case management type and treatment type issues. And we provide information to the court. We make recommendations to the court based on risk that the defendant may pose. And we hold our participants accountable. So we support them, we hold them accountable, we monitor how they're doing, and we just try to support them as best as we can. But we definitely keep the court informed. It's constant communication, letting the courts know how they're doing and how they're faring in drug court.
Okay, you say accountability, so how do you ensure that sanctions don't overshadow treatment goals?
Through that multidisciplinary team, checks and balances. So we have regular communication with the team. So we get together during pre-court staffings. During the pre-court staffings, we discuss if there are any challenges, if there are any circumstances that need to be known about the defendant, and we take the time to develop a plan, determine if there's something that can be done, and we consider all those factors and implement that plan. So through those discussions and getting together as the team, as a diverse team, we're able to ensure that we do not over-sanction.
Thank you. Attorney Glickman, may you please describe your role and the role you play in this treatment process?
So I am incredibly grateful because PDS is one of the only public defender agencies in the country that has a dedicated drug court public defender, that I don't have any trial responsibilities. I don't have any caseload outside of drug court, and that has given me an opportunity to really specialize and get my hands and understand the ASI and the assessment tools that they're using, to understand how the laboratory science is working, to understand how substance abuse counseling works, and take all of those skills together and do my best to support clients, because drug court is a unique area in the criminal legal system because it is technically a non-adversarial court, right? I can think of very few other times that OAG, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and PDS would be sitting at the same table agreeing on basically anything. But this is something we get to agree on and work collaboratively on, and as P.O. King was saying, one of the reasons we have these pre-court staffings is it allows us as a team to make therapeutic and to have more contentious conversations about what's going on with the client, what the best outcome is. So when we go into court, we can be much more of a united front in court, because at the end of the day, unlike the rest of the system, we all do have the same goal here. As much as I might disagree with certain things from other parties, at the end of the day, we do all just want to see people achieve sobriety, achieve success, and graduate the program. So I do a lot of things. It is often spending time educating clients, helping them understand why the testing is showing what it's showing. Why doesn't it show residual yet? Why am I still testing positive? What does a water load mean? How do I make sure ETG, which is a metabolite of alcohol that turns out is in all sorts of things, how do I make sure that doesn't get into my system? And as they were saying earlier, also confronting those collateral consequences. So, big one, because we have a lot of DUI clients in the program, is how do I get my driver's license back? How do I get the intoximeter installed in the car? How do I navigate the DMV? My job won't let me off work to go take these tests. And so it's a mixture of knowing FMLA law and how to get clients into inpatient treatment without losing their jobs, how to write letters to work that phrases it in a way that, you know, is completely honest, because I still have my attorney obligations. I can't present anything dishonestly, but we can choose how we present information to someone's job in a way that keeps them employed. You know, helping finding childcare, connecting people to nonprofits to help with that Metro card fare. Our clients can end up in downtown DC 6 days a week between the testing and the random groups. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. And even if you're only taking the Metro, even if you're not paying for parking, those Metro fares add up. And the majority of our clients are not people of means. The majority of our clients are not people with, you know, $10,000 to drop on a Metro card or to move to DC. And it is one of the things I've always prided myself on, is that, you know, when we become lawyers, our titles are attorneys and counselors at law. And so this position also lets me really take into that counselor at law perspective and help clients understand how they ended up where they are in the system, and how they can take ownership back. Instead of things happening to them, instead of the system happening to them, they can take control back in their lives and say, this actually is up to me. This is unlike a jury trial where 12 random people are deciding my fate. I decide my fate in this program. And so taking all of those things together to help them be successful is kind of what my role is.
This is for all panelists, but beyond graduation rates, what are some other areas of success that you would deem successful?
You want to comment first?
Yeah, I mean, so we actually have, and you know, I think when you might compare it to other IOP programs, I think we do have a really phenomenal success rate. Just
IOP is intensive outpatient.
Yes, thank you. You know, when, you know, people are doing other treatment programs, we actually have a very high success rate in terms of graduation. We have a high success rate in terms of lack of recidivism. But for me, when I see those progress markers throughout a case, whether or not someone actually graduates or not, when I see them progress and taking ownership of things, again, it's not things happening to them, it's they're in control of their own lives, even if it is just realizing maybe drug court isn't where I get sober, but now I realize it's obtainable for me. You know, okay, maybe it's gonna take me 3 years to graduate drug court, but I'm living in a house and not on the street for the first time. And so I think that anytime we can take someone who has come into the criminal legal system and leave them better off than they were before they came in, that to me is success.
Let me add to that. It's always an incremental matter. And I can think of a particular defendant who was always getting sanctioned and even served some time in cell block sanctions and jail sanctions. One of the very few who got those. And eventually, he left the program voluntarily and did not graduate, but I'm persuaded that he's in a much better place than he was before. This person, without giving any more personal details, was closely involved with an adult son, very supportive of him, dedicated to getting a job and to getting sober. He knew it wasn't ultimately going to work in drug court, but I think he's in a much better place, and you know what I'm talking about, than he was before. And so I think he's benefited a great deal from that.
I wanted to add that another success factor from being in drug court is just, this may be the vessel of finding out about other things that's needed. There are defendants that are finding out for the first time that they may have a mental health issue, or they're finally getting grief counseling, or, you know, so this is like their segue, like they're finally getting something. Even if they don't graduate, they may finally get some of the much needed treatment that they had not received their whole entire lives.
And I'll just add to add on to that. I think the support system is just so incredible that defendants have when they come into drug court. It is a system of including obviously substance use treatment, which is thousands of dollars worth of treatment that many people couldn't afford if they were doing it on their own. That they can get. But in addition to that, it's all the other collateral benefits that Pretrial can connect them with, that Ms. Angel Surratt can connect them with. She gets people put in apartments, you know, in 3 hours. She did that the other day. She's a miracle worker. And, you know, that can only benefit the community and the safety of the community. We had someone recently graduate with a co-occurring disorder, so they were actually in mental health court, but they had an alcohol problem as well as a mental health problem, and they recently graduated. But one of the things that they had said from the beginning was, I have no one. I'm just all alone in this world, and I feel like I don't have anyone to be with ever. And I said to them, and we all said to that person, you have a support system now. You know, no matter what brought you here, now you have this system in place to help you. And so that is just huge, whether or not they graduate or not. But you know, that person graduated. It was a great day. But the system itself, connecting them, is amazing. Like Ms. King said, I just want to elaborate on that.
One more thing, Pretrial Services runs this excellent intensive outpatient program, and a lot of people who have been in that, even if they don't graduate the program, they recognize they're not alone with this problem. They say, oh, other people have been depressed as well, have been frustrated as well, or something bad has happened and they started using or drinking again, and come up with methods of addressing it. Mr. Jones and others who run those programs, I ask, how do you like your groups? And generally it's, oh, I love them. I mean, they're having to go 3 or 4 times a week for hours, and they love it because it gives them support in not being alone and giving alternatives. And also when people graduate, they get the inspiration, say, I know him from group, man, if he can do it, I can do it. I don't know if you want to say anything else, but those groups that you run are fantastic. And then Ms. Surratt,
thank you.
Can't give her enough. She is a miracle worker.
I want to transition to Ms. Etheridge concerning what encouraged you to participate in drug court.
My freedom. My freedom basically encouraged me. That was actually my second time in drug court. The first time it was easy, but the second time it was difficult. And I say, for me, it needed to be difficult, because the first time I didn't take it serious. But this time I saw that I had support, and I was able to take it serious.
And if I might add real quick, because I met Ms. Etheridge, and I hope you're okay with me saying this, when she was stepped back and in custody, and I rarely get to meet clients before they take the guilty plea, and so I've met them after the decision to come into drug court is already made. In Ms. Etheridge's case, I didn't, and I heard her talk about why she wanted to get sober. I heard what her approach was, and I told her a trial attorney at the time, who had questionable feelings about whether drug court was the right place for Ms. Etheridge, but she insisted upon it herself. And having spent 5 minutes with her, I told the lawyer, I'm like, it's not gonna be easy, but I do think that she is a perfect fit for the program, because it is that mental switch when people want the sobriety, but wanting sobriety is not enough, as everyone in here hopefully knows. The work to obtain and maintain sobriety is so much harder than just simply wanting it. Because wanting it was alone, everybody would get sober, and I think that drug court, although it was harder this time, I think did offer Miss Etheridge some of the structure that she needed to put herself through, so she's not doing too many things at once, so she is concentrating on herself and really on her recovery. I mean, she knows that I say it all the time, she's one of the people I'm most proud of. Her transformation is nothing less than phenomenal, and that is, again, at the end of the day, because she made the conscious choice to want that for herself, and then didn't let anything stop her.
If you don't mind me asking, what was your single biggest challenge? You said the second one was challenging and that you needed that.
Just staying clean. I'm gonna say for 90 days, my urines were dirty, straight dirty, for 90 days, and I had stopped using. So that was the most difficult time for me, and that's when I met Miss Angel. I was on the verge of quitting, because I'm like, it's not working. I know I haven't used, the urine's just not coming, it wasn't coming clean. And that's what he was talking about, the systems that they use, and he better explains it to us. And meeting her, she just gave me hope to let me know that you don't have to give up, keep going. If you know you didn't use, just keep going. So I had sanction after sanction after sanction, and I'm one of them people that had to go down there 6 days a week, because I was also on probation and I was in the drug court system. So I was taking the urine twice for probation, and theirs were random. So, and then on top of the classes 3 times a week. So I was there, it was like a job with no pay, but I got the benefits of remaining clean. It was very challenging, very challenging. I found myself every week saying, I'm quitting. This is not working for me. This is not working, and I can actually say I've actually probably gave everyone up here a hard time. If I would have had the judge number, I'd have been calling him. But I called Ms. King and D on several occasions, and they helped me. I just was telling her, because I was kind of emotional when I got here. I'm like, wow, I'm sitting up here, all these people and all this stuff that I was doing. You know, so it's an honor to be up here with them because I know I gave them a hard way to go, but they didn't give up on me. I can honestly say that they did not give up on me, because the way I was going, I probably would have been like, you can just go ahead, just go ahead and find something else to do, but they didn't. And I stuck with it, and I started to believe in myself, and I started to be honest with them. I let her know that my casework is not working for me. She immediately gave me another one. I'm not gonna say she was working for me, but it was different. And I probably called her several more times, but the fact she would call back, she would talk me off the ledge. That's the stuff I needed, through my struggles at the time I was struggling.
And we're honored to have you here. She told me it made her nervous to be in front of a group, have the judge here, have all these people here. And gives us pride, gives us reason to keep doing what we're doing. Mr. Daniel, if it's okay, I'd like just to invite Ms. Surratt to give a couple of comments on what she sees that helps make people successful.
One incident came when someone came in court and had a DUI case, and when they was positive with opiates, it was 2 females at the same time. Remember, and they came in court, and the judge was talking to them. In my heart, I had eye contact with both of the females, and I said they need some help. That's all they need is a push. And they was ready for the case to be closed. You know, go ahead about your business. I said, went back to the judge myself. I asked him, can we reopen this case now? Because I had a conversation with both of the young ladies by themselves, and they broke down and cried. And all they wanted is somebody to care for them, to believe in them, that they was trying to get clean. And they were struggling. And they cried, I'm crying too, I'm giving them a hug, I'm talking to them, giving them inspirational words, encouragement words. And I said, well, do you want help today? Both of them said, yeah. So I said, okay, we opened up the case. We went back and called the case again. I made a phone call. I got the Uber outside, put both of them in treatment at the same time. That was it was overwhelming for me to see that these two young ladies, they told the judge one thing, but they tell me something different. You know what I'm saying? Cause I opened up and I talked to them and let them feel comfortable by themselves. They could talk to me with their lawyer or whatever. Another incident, we have a mother with children. So that was her burials, having a child, homeless, sleeping in her car. But her parents was so uptight. Every day I see when she come across, you look so beautiful, you look so pretty. And I talk to the children, but underneath of the eyelashes and the hair she had some stuff going on with her. And she talked to me, she said, you know what, I'm homeless. I'm sleeping in my car with my children. I said, you know what, you have a birth certificate, you have a social security card, you have an ID. She said, yes. I said, give me a minute. I made a phone call. I sent her to this agency. Right the other day, she lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. And that's the thing I do with the clients. They come in and I talk to them. Sometimes I have to disclose my experience with me or what I went through 24 years ago to give them some hope. It's depending on the case, I would say, you know what, you can do it. Let me give you my experience. And that's when the hope come in. Because honestly, they want to see. They didn't heard enough, they didn't wrote enough, they didn't sign this paper enough. They need to see evidence. So I have to get to their level and say, okay, well, my child got taken from me 25 years ago. And I got all of them back within 8 years. And reason why is that I kept on coming back to the court building. I kept doing what the judge told me to do. I kept doing what Child Protective Service told me to do. And every time they told me to do one thing, I come back with 10 things on the desk with the judge. He was like, wait a minute. I see a transformation. So I got my children back, and now my children grown with children. So now I'm a grandmother. So as time go by, I have to share my experience with a lot of people to let them know that yes, you can not use, yes, you could change, and things will get better. Not saying it's going to be peaches and cream, but you can move on. Accept what it is and move on. So every day I go to work with Judge Isco, I be so overwhelmed sometimes, and my chest be pounding, but I still be there for a client. I might have something going on with me and one of my children that day, but I don't bring it to work. I go to work and I help somebody else, because they don't know, at the end of the day, they helping me when I get off. Thank you so much.
And that's why we say it's magic.
I actually had one more question for
Okay.
Mr. Rob, but
Okay.
it was just, yes.
Sorry.
What element of the court's treatment model do you feel is most critical to their success? So peer support,
I think
court
peer-
check-ins.
I think peer support is very important. I really do. And I think the judge is very important too, because the judge, he understands, he's compassionate, he's understandable. He gives you a chance after chance after chance. I have seen it. And then I also seen him no more chances. He said he only give you one. So, I think it's very important to have that program the way it's designed for mental health and drug court.
Let me just say one thing. One of the great things Ms. Surratt does is gives people sort of license, permission to tell the judge the truth. Like, you know, those two women she was talking about, they didn't want to say certain things because it'd make them look bad. And she says to them, I never know exactly what she says, and I don't want to know. But what I know is she's saying, go ahead and tell that to the judge, and then you can do these things, and this program can work for you. And don't give up. And there's sometimes they won't tell their attorney things that they'll tell
Yes.
Ms. Surratt, and it just makes a huge difference. And I think we all know, we've all said, okay, well, I'm gonna take a break, talk to Ms. Surratt, and then come back. We've also seen the cases where somebody will be in court with another person that doesn't want them to talk to Ms. Surratt. We've seen some sort of sketchy situations, you know, and one time I had to say, I want to sit in there with Ms. Surratt. Well, you're not the defendant in case you can't be there. One time I had to call security and say, this person can't come in because she's entitled to talk, she and her attorney, you know.
Yes.
There are some,
And then we have babysitters, I have to babysit the babies a lot.
we've had Miss Surratt, I've got a 1-year-old, I can't do my urine test. Miss Surratt will go there and hold the baby. You know, there are things that just above and beyond, because if you have a child in diapers, you can't leave them at the child care center. So, you know, it's not in the job description, but it's in the success
Yes.
description.
Yes.
Thank you. We're actually going to take questions from the audience. If there's any questions from the audience, I can share my mic as well as Ms. Surratt has one.
There was a lot of success here from the panel, but I'm curious to know, it sounds really good actually. I commend you and Lenny down here. It was pretty tough, you know. I can only imagine. I mean, I don't have the issue, but I can only imagine. But you know, considering the success stories and the outcomes and all is this shared with neighboring, like PG County? Is this shared with, you know, the connecting areas here that y'all probably see people who live in Alexandria, Virginia, DC, Maryland, you know, is these, you know, not necessarily say this event, but an opportunity to host something like this, not by necessarily this panel, but a similar, I'm sure they have attorneys or, you know, prosecutors there, or, you know, maybe not pretrial, but maybe parole officers or probation officers, or, you know, something similar, to be able to have something like this and reach more people like y'all have.
So I can answer that, I think, very briefly. Prior to my employment with PDS, I was a Baltimore City public defender. Part of what I did there was also cover drug courts. So Maryland in particular has an office of problem-solving courts. Most of their jurisdictions in Maryland have some degree of drug court, mental health court. There's also veterans treatment courts, family reunification courts. There's all sorts of stuff that fits under the wider treatment court umbrella. Virginia has some of them as well, and as you correctly stated, particularly between PG and DC, there's a lot of cross-border stuff. I think that something we could do better is collaborating more specifically with their drug courts. But my experience when, you know, I have a client who's in one jurisdiction and gets arrested in another or something like that, something I always know is the judge in the other jurisdiction is going to value that they are in drug court in the jurisdiction that I'm in. So I think that there is some institutional recognition across the country of the importance of treatment courts.
Yeah, I'm a piggyback off of Attorney Glickman. I've seen a lot of instances where if we have a participant who's on probation in another jurisdiction, they would just want us to keep the probation officer informed of how they're doing in drug court, and as long as they're doing well in drug court, they'll kind of you know, hold off on their sentencing or whatever is going on in the other jurisdiction, as long as they're doing well in drug court.
Let me add, I think Ms. King in pretrial services, we have one of the best agencies in the country, and I wish every jurisdiction had something like that. We've got the CJCC to help coordinate all this. We are fortunate, and I think your question's an excellent, we're fortunate to have the resources too, where we can right now send somebody to 30 days inpatient treatment. And I can say, this could cost you $30,000 and you're getting it for free. And we're lucky to have that. I wish around the country we had as strong, robust drug courts as we have in DC, but they are all over the country because people recognize the success that they can lead to.
Thank you very much. First, I want to definitely congratulate the young lady, and I want to thank everybody for all the work that you all are doing. I'm a huge component of all the specialized courts, mental health, drug court, because they work. I think it's clear evidence shows that they work. People getting sold, people turning their lives around. One of the things, I've been working with a group of criminal justice takeovers, and one of the biggest questions we had, and what we would like to see, if possible, is how do we expand it? How do we open up the opportunity to individuals who may not have, they have a felony, and had issues with drugs and alcohol. Is it a way to expound on that, and can we, again, open up, opportunities? Because again, it works. It's real clear that it works. And the other thing, again, working with people with criminal justice stakeholders, it seemed like, and I'm not going to say an alarming, but quite a few people choose not to go to drug court, for whatever reason. So in talking with some of the folks, one of the things, and I think it should be hard. Someone says how you got 5, 6, or 6 meetings a week, and as a person in recovery myself, I know that, it should be hard, but I guess my question is, with who set up the guidelines for folks that, make the decision not to go to drug court? Again, a lot of it from listening to them is that, I can't have a job, work, go to these meetings, I got a child, so is it a way, and is it thought that, you can lower some of the thresholds to get, while in drug court, so that other people will not rather be sentenced than an opportunity to have their charges dismissed. So, thank you.
So I will say, I may be answering a slightly different question here, but that is one thing that I think I can speak for the rest of my office when I say this, is that is one thing that we would love to see happen. We can expand the program. I think, especially to address some of the points you raised, the fact that participants come in and they have jobs, they have housing obligations, they have childcare obligations. If there's a way, just wish list here, if there was a way that the program could receive additional funding and additional support in any other way to where the program could in fact, I don't know, supply them directly, but provide more resources to allow participants to go through the program, but without having to say, oh, actually, no, I can't because work is too demanding, or childcare, all these other obstacles. That would be fantastic. Unfortunately, I don't have any answers as to how we get there, but in an ideal world, if we could get the funding and get the support, our office would certainly love to see that happen.
Let me answer.
A different part of the question is, I'm the judge who presides over drug court, but I don't have any role in the decision of who is eligible for drug court. And if the U.S. Attorney's Office or the Office of the Attorney General says somebody's not eligible, somebody with a serious felony, for example, I can't change that. That's because the prosecutors have to cooperate in order for there to be a drug court. They're the ones that have to make the assessment. I would love to see more people come into drug court, and right now we're seeing the U.S. Attorney's Office was sending us more cases, but and maybe Attorney Glickman or Ms. King would want to address. There are the people who say, I just can't do it because I've got to keep my job, I've got to support my family. And some people say it's better to do 10 days in jail and get out and have it over with than to go through the drug treatment.
So drug court is voluntary, so we can't we can encourage participation, and we try to make it as accessible for everyone as possible. So, we have morning groups, we have afternoon groups, we have evening groups. So we try to, meet everyone where, you know, if you work nights, you can come in the morning. So we try to accommodate as many schedules as possible. We have virtual groups. We have the residential programs, that could be expanded, but we try to make it as accommodating. I think one of the issues may be just getting the word out there, actually having the conversation, explaining, you know what, this is the schedule, this is what we can do, you know, what is your schedule? We had a participant come in, I believe that was on Monday, I believe. And when he came in, he said, I work from 6 to 2, and I go to an apprenticeship program from 4 to 7. I said, well, you can't do it. Cause that meets, you know, that overlaps every group. But, said, well, my apprenticeship program is just Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I said, okay, so you could go to groups on Mondays and Wednesdays. However, you're gonna miss Thursdays. So I get out at 7. I said, well, you could possibly make the second group, but it's just gonna take you longer. He said, I'm fine with that. I said, okay, well, if you're fine with that, we're fine with that. So it's just a conversation, and not just the no, you know, no, you can't do it. So there's workarounds.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that it's a mixture of a lot of myth busting as well. People have ideas of what drug court is. Some of those ideas are reality, some of those are not. And so when clients come in and they're on the fence about, is this something I can do, is this not something I can do, they get the time to speak with me, to speak with Ms. Surratt, to speak with PSA, to see what accommodations can we make. Sometimes it's sitting down and saying, like, no, it feels impossible, but it's actually possible. In terms of expanding our reach, in terms of the type of cases, I will say the very unpopular thing, and I will say this is my position and it is not the government's position. To me, the biggest bar we have right now is the prohibition on gun offenses coming in to the program. I recognize gun violence is bad. I'm not saying anything other than that, but I think we also have to recognize that the amount of people that are carrying guns today versus 20, 30 years ago has just fundamentally changed, and that the simple presence of a gun doesn't necessarily say that there is inherent violence. And so I would like, in a world where I think we could reach more people, particularly the people that are the highest risk, highest need, that should be coming into our program, right? Because those people are gonna go to jail. They may or may not get treatment while they're in jail. They'll go on parole and probation. They might get treatment while on parole and probation. But if we want to stop the cycle of recidivism, we have to not be afraid to take on those challenging cases.
Any more questions?
Yes. Thank you all for sharing your experiences across the board, and of course you, Ms. Surratt. After graduation, what happens? What happens after graduation, and can graduates access services post-graduation, and what does that look like?
So before you graduate, they have it where you go into phase 4, you have to attend one outside meeting. So that's what happens. If you pick up on attending those outside meetings and keep up the habit, that becomes your lifestyle, attending those outside meetings. So that's what worked for me. And that's what I didn't do the first time. I didn't do the outside meetings. So it's best that you continue on your process. You have to, because what they're teaching you is behavior modification inside of the rooms. They're not teaching you to stay stopped. You learn that once you get out of the program and further on your recovery process. Thank you.
Yeah, and so some clients end up on probation, some get their case dismissed. For clients on probation, they have the continued testing through CSOSA, the continuous monitoring through CJCC, and I think that we as a drug courts, the steering committee, we've often discussed how can we set up better aftercare services for people as well. One of the things that Michael McGinnis, who's not here, who is the drug court coordinator, always says upon people's graduation is that you're now a part of the drug court family. If you need something, you can call us. My phone number doesn't change. The PSO's phone number doesn't change. And again, without fully speaking for PSA, but I am confident without even saying to Ms. King that if a prior client came in and said, I'm relapsing or I need issues, any of the PSOs are gonna do what they can to help them, Ms. Surratt, myself. And so we try and maintain those connections and let people know that, you know, you are always welcome to come back.
Thank you. I want to build a little bit, so specifically because I heard you say aftercare services, and thank you for sharing about step 4, right? Phase 4, thank you. My question also is about the mental health services that Ms. King spoke about earlier. So you said that when participants come, they realize, or they're getting services, grief counseling, mental health services that they didn't receive before. Does that and can that continue? And I'll stop there.
It absolutely does.
Okay.
So, if mental health issues are identified while they're in drug court, they're connected, and they're connected through a service provider in DC through Department of Behavioral Health. So they're connected there. While they're on supervision, we do monitor that. We frequently collaborate with the mental health provider and just get information from them, make sure that everything is going well. So they can continue that. That stays with them. That's for them outside of drug court. So that's theirs to keep.
We also have something called the Court Urgent Care Clinic, and you don't have to be arrested and have a case against you in order to get drug services or mental health services. You come into the urgent care clinic and get an assessment and be referred for drug treatment or for mental health treatment. And if you're a resident of DC, you can be provided, and you meet the income requirements, you can be provided cost-free. So, I mean, I remember thinking of a particular extended family member thought, I wish he'd been arrested, this was a different jurisdiction, because then he could have gotten these services. Here, you can walk in and get that, and that's, fortunately, CJCC, the urgent care clinic, got refunded again. We had to fight for it to do that, not as a Superior Court can't lobby. Well, let me just say that we were very encouraged that they could get refunded. Ms. Love knows how important that is. So I think it's just something to say, if you know of people that need help, that's one way to do it.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So one thing that I'd like to add, and I'll bring up my wish list here again. It's my understanding that if you go through a mental health community court and then you're placed on supervised probation, you can actually be supervised by mental health court or CJCC's, the community supervision office, their mental health unit. I think it would be great. Again, I can't speak as to how this would come about, but if there could be a parallel unit or apparatus in place for drug court graduates, that would also be fantastic. That's specialized for individuals who are recovering from substance abuse. Our office would love to see something like that.
Hey guys, thank you again for the awesome work that you do. I didn't know much about it before I came in, and now I feel like I'm really full. And I wanted to once again congratulate the lady on the stage today for graduating from the program. You really did the real work. I really love to see you out there doing that. And I love I forget what your name was, sir. I know that you're the judge. I love what you just said, because my question is, how greatly affected by the current local or federal administration is this program on, from president to president, would you say? Do you sometimes have to worry about how long our program's gonna be around, depending on who's in the White House or who the mayor is? Or how does that look from, I guess decade to decade, since we've been around for about 30 years now?
I really can't comment on that, unfortunately, but it's a very good question. Let me just add one thing that not exactly related, but somewhat. I think it's a great program. I think it saves money in the long run, because even if they're paying $30,000 for treatment, you're not paying to put somebody in jail, and you're helping them become a better person. But giving the applause to Ms. Etheridge reminded me that I think one of the key things in drug court and mental health court is recognition from a position of authority that you've done good things. Most people don't walk out of court happy. The only people that walk out of court happy on a regular basis are people who graduate from a treatment program and on adoption day, something, those are the happy times in court. But when we have a graduation ceremony, I think it's worth mentioning. It's something I started a few years ago when I was in the community court. I said, I want to shake the person's hand, and the marshal said, you can't do that, it's too dangerous. And I said, no, come on, people are graduating. And shaking people's hands, for a judge to shake somebody's hand, and they often pose for a picture, it means a great deal. And I think that kind of recognition really helps. And in answer to your question, I hope we continue to have funding to be able to do that, because it is critically important. It has continued from president to president. I hope it does continue.
I think it's worth noting that one of President Trump's most recent executive orders actually encouraged the participation of drug court, actually, so.
And that's something I wanted to try and, thread the needle very carefully, but drug courts nationally do have a lot of bipartisan support for the reasons that Judge Isco laid out. Some of us come from the perspective of these is what people need, and these are people, this is what we should be doing. And some people come from the perspective of this saves us money. And although I might not agree with money being on the forefront, if it gets us where we need to be, I'm happy to be allies with those folks. And so Dr. Daniels mentioned earlier the organization All Rise, that used to be known as the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, is the best practice standard setting organization, and they have whole media kits about how to create a drug court in your jurisdiction. But to speak more directly to your question, they have a lot of things about funding and how to get through. So there is a national organization working on it. And this is one of those things that sneaks through on a bipartisan basis, and we'd like to keep it that way.
Excellent question.
Any more questions?
Right here. Good evening, everybody. Actually, my question was already answered by the judge regarding the, the emergent care clinic. I deal with a lot of victims, particularly with domestic violence, and some of the things that come up, obviously, is that they don't want to necessarily move forward with a criminal investigation, but they definitely do want some type of court intervention or additional help. So just to know that this factor is out there cost-free, that they can refer the families over to. Just quick question about it, what's the location? Because I don't think we provided the address.
It's in the court building, 500 Indiana Avenue Northwest, next to courtroom 115, down a short hallway. Shannon Walsh is the director. She's a licensed clinical social worker. There is a psychiatrist there who I've never heard anybody say a bad thing about. Everybody says, oh, he was wonderful. He really helped me. Now it's limited to 8 weeks. After that, you have to be connected to a mental health provider in the district. That still doesn't mean you have to pay for it, and if you're eligible, and they can really help you with the assignments, with finding a good agency to treat you. And Ms. Surratt from the mental health court work often will take people down there. Sometimes people get lost walking down a hallway because they get lost or they lose their resolve to get help. Ms. Surratt helps encourage them, walk into that office and get your help. And it's a court urgent care clinic, and if you walk into the court building, there's a little sign that points you down the hallway to get there.
Can you tell he's question? I'm sorry.
Sorry, can you tell that he's given directions to the urgent care clinic over and over and over again?
Yes. In all ages.
I don't know the answer to that, but is it for all ages?
No, you have to be 18.
There's
18 and a DCID, as long as you have those two things, you can walk in and get services. I'll say we do have a number of people who have survived DV in the program, and they have come into court in, essentially I would categorize it as a PTSD episode, and we've been able to like literally get them to see the psychiatrist downstairs in a matter of a half hour. And I don't know anywhere else where you get psychiatric intervention that fast. And it is, I truly think, sustains some people in the short term.
And if you're born in DC, you don't have a DC ID though, they will help you get one.
Yeah.
They can,
Yes.
I mean, they're amazing on that way. You know, now if you were born in Kansas, it's gonna take them a while to get that birth certificate, but they can help you. You're born in DC, they're gonna help you get that ID, sometimes a cell phone, other things. They work miracles too. And Ms. Surratt works closely with them.
And if people are specifically looking for drug treatment, anyone with a DCID can also walk into the ARC, I can't remember what the acronym is now, the Assessment and Recovery Center, where they can walk in, get a drug assessment that day, and the ARC is often able to place people in inpatient treatment that day. Again, as someone who's practiced in multiple jurisdictions, including in the Deep South, DC is not perfect, nowhere is perfect, but I'm always blown away by, if you know what to access, there are a lot of services here.
And if you know drug issues, you know that day is so important. We'll have a spot for you in 3 weeks. Well, in 3 weeks, you don't know what's gonna be going on. But if you go that day, well, they've got the motivation, that's gonna really help.
And sorry.
I was gonna say, they also have, not the urgent care clinic, but there are a few centers in the city that do same day start for methadone, Suboxone, Vivitrol, and stuff like that. And again, as everyone said, that quick intervention, the faster we get people to access these medically assisted treatment and other tools, the better.
And so to me, this just circles back to the human component and the fact of all this collective knowledge that we have up here that people don't have in the community. And if you are unfortunate enough to have to go through drug court, you get this information. You get access to this information. They're definitely, I know that the CJCC and people throughout DC are working on disseminating it for everyone, but my point being, this is going back to that question about if graduation is the only metric, or other metrics of success, is you get all of this information. You have people that are willing to say, hey, go to this address, and it's, a lot of people don't think about the people that come through the program that have no driver's license, no birth certificate, no social security card. Those things are very, very important to get access to any services. And so that's something too that the urgent care clinic helps with, and that people are able to get. We had a graduation a couple of months ago where the individual said, I came in here, I had no documentation of my existence. And now I have everything I need. I can get a job, I can go to the hospital, I can do all sorts of things that I couldn't do before, and that's very empowering. So just wanted to highlight that as well.
Thank you.
I believe we have one last question.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
A couple times sanctions came up in here for participants who are maybe not doing quite as well. Judge Isco mentioned that jail sanctions are pretty rare, and when I think of sanctions from the court, I usually think jail, fine, or some kind of verbal reprimand, which is usually not super helpful. But it sounds like you have a very different approach, and I'd like you to maybe elaborate a bit.
Let me elaborate, then I'd like others to comment. One of the main sanctions we have is sitting in the jury box. And what you do is you sit there and watch the proceedings for the day.
Yeah, I heard you mention that before.
And I think that for many people makes a huge difference. We could have Ms. Edwards can talk about it, but Mr. Glickman, if you want to talk about it, because you know the clients.
Yeah, and I'll say just briefly, we have what's called a graduated sanction grid, where it is the number of testing infractions you have and the corresponding sanction. They started verbal reprimands, they started extra groups. There are workbooks that PSA provides. I think it is, I can't remember the name of the curriculum. Is it the Hillsdale curriculum, or am I making that name? his Dell curriculum. See, I knew what I was talking about. And so they do workbook assignments, and so the sanctions aren't just meant to be punitive, they're meant to also have a therapeutic basis, right? Sitting in the jury box, even outside of maybe lawyers, no one wants to spend their entire day in a courtroom, but and Ms. Etheridge can obviously expand on it, but I do think that seeing other people sit in the seat next to me, seeing how they explain things to the court, seeing how the court reacts, it gives people perspective. And I think early on in recovery, it's hard for people to have perspective outside of the next 5 minutes, right? I'm dealing, and so giving people that large perspective, seeing people at different phases in the program, and sometimes even knowing that jail is the next sanction, might give you that little extra you need when you are in that crisis mode of, I'm dealing with grief, right? Because a lot of relapse comes out of real human emotion. And so how do we give people the tools to be able to deal with that emotion in a way that it's the substances? And sometimes if they need the only thing holding me back is don't want to go to jail, we have what we have to work with. So Miss, why don't you talk a little bit more about the sanctions?
I've actually only had jury box sanctions. I don't even think I had to work with it. All my sanctions were jury box. And I had to have done probably like 30 of them. Because like I said, 90 days, my urine was not coming clean. And no matter me saying, but I haven't used, it doesn't matter. If the system is saying that the urine is dirty, you have to get the sanction. So I was grateful to get the jury box sanction, but it was an inconvenience because I work overnight. So I would have to come sit in the jury box, and majority of the time I was falling asleep. And so that was another problem. So it was just a lot of reprimanding that had to happen for me to grasp the concept that I put myself in this predicament. They're giving me a chance. Do what's necessary to come from out the jury box, and that's what I did. I made it work for me. I will try to go home and probably doze off for like 45 minutes. It was one time I came out, my car was gone. My car got towed because I was doing something else I had no business doing, parking in an illegal spot. So it was just a lot of lessons that came out of the sanction. It wasn't like all bad. It was lessons to be learned. And then at the end of the court, he would ask us, what did we get out of it? And it would help the people that were actually on the other side. So they would know, like, that's not where I want to be at. You don't want to be, you'd rather be on the other side of it. So it would help them and it would help us.
I was just wondering what the tipping point or decision level is to qualify someone to come into drug court. But first let me back up and say, you are doing life-changing, phenomenal work, so thank you. But I just wondered, what level of activity would have happened that would allow them to come in or not? And then if there are victims involved in the crime, once they've gone through drug court, my understanding, what I think you said, is everything is like washed and done. Like they're not going, that's all they had to do. But then, would restorative justice be a part of this at all? And I don't know, are there victimless crimes that they're doing?
So they're not all victimless crimes, and a lot of the crimes that involve victims are through the United States Attorney's Office and the cases that we refer. And so we have crime, obviously, well, not obviously, not everyone knows this, but in DC we have the Crime Victims' Rights Act that protects victims of crime and requires us as prosecutors to fulfill certain obligations, including letting them know what's going on, keeping them apprised. And so part of that is the assigned prosecutor will talk to the victim, explain to them what's going on, and get their opinion on it. We're not bound by the victim's opinion, but we take it into consideration, and that's a very important piece of the puzzle when we're looking at whether or not we're going to refer a case to drug court.
And as someone who very much believes in the power of restorative justice, I also have legitimate questions about whether it belongs in the court system. And that is not a ding on restorative justice, but to me, the ideals behind both the court system and restorative justice are eventually going to clash. And the court system is always going to come out on top. And so I think that there's a lot of theoretical conversations about how that is practiced, but in a colloquial sense of the term restorative justice, I think that is in some ways what we're doing. Obviously, I don't have the same contact with victims that the prosecutors do outside of, my clients are also mostly victims as well, because we know how the system works. But in my experience, it is so often they're like, I want them to get treatment. I want them to be doing better. This happened to me, but what will make me feel better is not this person sitting in a cell, but knowing that this person got the help that they need and they're not gonna do this to anybody else.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you. I want to thank the panelists for coming, taking their time to educate us and provide us insight on their responsibilities in drug court. I want to close out with some remarks from our Director Love, as well as Judge Isco, and we will be complete.
Just another extended thank you to the panelists. Thank you for spending your evening with us, and I hope it was informative. I learned a lot. Every time I sort of have the opportunity to consult with the folks in this panel and their colleagues. And like I started off saying, you know, it's helpful to see opportunities where, you know, our criminal justice system here in the district, you know, does have moments where we are people-centered. We see them as humans who have issues that they're struggling with, and then to see we as a system trying to help those individuals. So we don't see them back in the system, yes, that's one goal, but so that they're able to better their lives. So thank you to you all. Before I turn over to Judge Disco, just a quick note. I think I saw a lot of you scanning the QR code. Just please do fill out the survey for this event. And then one of the last questions is, do you have ideas for future public meetings like this? We would love to hear your ideas. We want to know what's of interest. And so we can put together another panel that can sort of shed light on a particular aspect of the justice system or public safety. So thank you all. Judge.
I want to thank you all, and I think we all want to thank you for your interest in this. And I want to extend an invitation to any of you to come by drug court or mental health court, courtroom 210, Superior Court. We're generally there every day of the week. You can always call my chambers. You can find my name. I give you the phone number is 202-879-7835, but you can find it anywhere on the court's website. Just be sure we're going to be in court before you come in. You can let us know you're coming. That's great, but you don't have to. You can just walk into court. We're there. We start at 10 o'clock because we have a meeting at 9 a.m. to discuss the cases, and then we start at 10. And we'd all of us would be delighted to see any of you there. So thank you. And I think you see how much this work means to all of us. You have to care about this, and you have to care about the people, and all of us do. All of us, and it makes such a difference. And to see Ms. Etheridge here, a graduate, come in, it just, that's why we do this. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Katie,